Haley, DeSantis spar for second as 2024 primary closes. Tensions are ramping up between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, R., and former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley as she gains traction and seemingly threatens his second-place spot in the Republican presidential primary. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than the two campaigns have spent much of the week trading barbs over the possibility of the U.S. receiving refugees from Gaza, with DeSantis accusing Haley of trying to be politically correct. Haley's campaign has hit back, accusing the DeSantis campaign of falsely describing her stance on the issue. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than the super PACs supporting them have also battled in recent days. On Wednesday, the pro-DeSantis Never Back Down PAC rolled out an ad, painting Haley as being sympathetic to refugees. Meanwhile, the pro-Haley SFA PAC highlighted reports that DeSantis was losing donors, calling it DeSperation. The war of words comes as the two battle to be the primary's top Trump alternative, a spot that DeSantis has held in the campaign so far. Right now, he doesn't have a Donald Trump problem, he's got a Nikki Haley problem, NewsNation political contributor Chris Steyerwalt said on The Hill earlier this week. Nikki Haley's gaining momentum, he's going down to South Carolina to take questions from you, because Nikki Haley, and foreign policy, all the foreign policy news helps Nikki Haley. He's gotta find a way to deal with her. NewsNation is owned by Nexstar Media Group, which also owns The Hill. DeSantis's campaign seems to have dealt with Haley, at least this week, through the barrage of attacks on her foreign policy record. I think it all boils down to one thing. She's moving step by step to become the most viable alternative to Trump, said one Republican strategist. It may not end that way, but that's what it's looking like, so I'd expect her to take a lot more incoming. And DeSantis allies are seizing on what they say is Haley flip-flopping on issues. Nikki Haley has a history of weekly flip-flopping on critical issues, and so far, she has never had to defend her actions. She's provided an opportunity with her own missteps to fully expose her record versus her rhetoric. She will not be able to survive that, said Kristen Davison, chief operating officer at Never Back Down. The recent back and forth between the candidates stems from the Israel-Hamas war declared this month. On Saturday, DeSantis said during an address that the U.S. should not take in Palestinian refugees from Gaza, instead pushing that other countries in the region should be responsible. If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic. None of them believe in Israel's right to exist, DeSantis said. The following day on CNN's State of the Union, Haley was asked about DeSantis's comments on Palestinians being anti-Semitic. Haley noted that from her experience at the UN, half of Palestinians did not support Hamas, while the other half did. There are so many people who want to be free from this terrorist rule, she said. They want to be free from all of that. And America's always been sympathetic to the fact that you can separate civilians from terrorists. And that's what we have to do. In the same interview, Haley questioned why countries like Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Lebanon are not taking in Palestinian refugees. On Monday, the pro-DeSantis super PAC Never Back Down posted a clip from the interview in which she was responding to DeSantis's comments about Palestinians being anti-Semitic, claiming Haley was arguing in support of bringing Gaza refugees to America. And Tuesday, the PAC rolled out a 30-second television ad using Haley's response to DeSantis's comments on Palestinians being anti-Semitic, with the caption, Nikki Haley on Gaza refugees? While Haley was not referring to refugees in her remarks, Republicans point out the tactic from DeSantis as a clear play at the party's hardline conservative base. Nikki Haley's foreign policy view may be popular, acceptable in a general election, but it's not a strength of hers necessarily in a Republican primary, said Ford O'Connell, a GOP strategist. But Haley has still used her experience to hit DeSantis. On Wednesday, Haley responded to a tweet in which DeSantis challenged the other Republicans in the field to oppose Biden's $100 million gift to Hamas, referring to President Biden's funding to aid civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. We did this in 2018 when we eliminated U.S. aid to UNRWA. Welcome to the fight, Haley tweeted, referring to her time at the UN. Actions, talk. Haley's campaign also released a campaign ad, titled, Desperate DeSantis. The spot asks, why is Desperate DeSantis attacking Nikki Haley? And answers, he's losing to Nikki. And it's easy to see why. In return, DeSantis's campaign blasted Haley's latest ad as a distraction. Ron DeSantis is running a serious campaign to challenge Donald Trump for our Party's nomination for president. Nikki Haley is clearly running a traditional Washington, D.C. committee blueprint to move talking heads rather than real primary voters, said DeSantis campaign press secretary Brian Griffin. Ron DeSantis has been crystal clear. Not a single penny of U.S. tax dollars to the Gaza Strip, and not a single pro-Hamas refugee on American soil. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Haley's allies and her supporters point to her recent fundraising numbers and improvement in the polls. A Fox News poll released last week showed Haley behind DeSantis by only 3 points. The poll's margin of error was 4.5 points for Republican primary voters. At the state level, Haley has also seen some improvement. A Winthrop University survey released earlier this month showed Haley in second place behind Trump, 51% to 17% among Republican primary voters in her home state of South Carolina. DeSantis trailed at 12% support. Meanwhile, a USA Today, Boston Globe, Suffolk University poll of New Hampshire GOP primary voters showed Trump leading Haley 49% to 19%. DeSantis came in third at 10%. Still, DeSantis holds second place in most polling. The Real Clear Politics polling average shows the Florida governor in second place with 12.8% support. Haley comes in third place with 7.4% support, the former ambassador's. Supporters also cite fundraising as a sign of her rise. Haley's campaign reported raising more than $11 million in the third quarter of the year and ended the quarter with $11.6 million cash on hand. Of that, Haley can use $9.1 million in the primary. DeSantis's campaign, together with a political action committee and joint fundraising account, raised $15 million during the same period. The campaign started the month with $13.5 million cash on hand, but only $5 million of that could be used during the primary. Since announcing, DeSantis insisted it's a two-man race between him and Trump. As his fundraising and poll numbers plummet, he's lobbing false attacks at Nikki because he knows it's a two-person race, Nikki and Trump, said Olivia Perez-Cubas, spokesperson for Haley's campaign. Regardless of who ultimately grasps second place, the candidate will have to contend with Trump. The former president has dominated the polls and fundraising, showing himself to be a political titan in the crowded primary field. DeSantis donor Dan Eberhard warned that the barrage of attacks between the Haley and DeSantis campaigns could play into Trump's hands. The feud benefits Trump more than it does DeSantis or Haley. If they are attacking each other, they aren't attacking him, Eberhard said. Candidates rise and fall in the polls over the course of a campaign. They need to keep their eyes on the horse at the front of the pack.